Muhammad hijab and his secret marriage. Is what he has done, is it?
Take a rumor or take some allegations that are made and then run with them as if they're fine. Bring something from Islam that we can then discuss.
The woman was just stayed in a hotel.
You're scraping the bottom of the barrel and you're asking me about something about a particular individual as if any individual, me, Abbas, anyone else, is what Islam is. It's not. No more than Rabbi Zachariah or all of those Catholic priests represent your religion. Shall I line them all up and say that is it okay for the Pope to know that their priests are sodomizing young children and to then hide it from the public? Is that okay? Is that very Christian of them?
What we've seen recently with Muhammad hijab and his secret marriage. And I wanted to ask you, is what he has done, is it perfectly legal under Islam?
Well, to be honest with you, Frank, I'm really surprised because I don't know about this apart from whatever people are sort of making videos about online. And I'm really surprised that you've come up and that's your way of approaching the topic. So tell me, what is it about? What is it specifically that you're asking?
Okay, so
because what would be appreciated is just rather than trying to malign another person who we don't know, you can't take a rumor or take some allegations that are made and then run with them as if they're fine. I think that's unreasonable to do. Rather than trying to do that, if you're gonna try to link it to Islam, bring something from Islam that we can then discuss. So tell me a rule or something about Islam or what you understand about Islamic marriage, and then we can go from there. Rather than doing this sort of throwing mud, you don't want me to bring up sort of potentially people have been accused of behaving badly from the Christian community and then associate that with Christianity. That would be like a really low down, scummy thing to do. And obviously I'd expect more from you as well. So let's get to the actual issue with Islam. That would be really useful.
Okay. So like irrespective of what has actually happened, like I think it was about a year ago, he appeared on a show with EFDawah on his stream, and they were discussing this issue of taking a second wife, and there was a panel with like he was there with a couple of other guys, and there was a panel of Muslim women, and they specifically discussed whether if a man takes a second wife, does he have to tell his first wife if he's doing it, and can he actually lie to his first wife about it? And you can see, like as I say, it's on EFDawah's channel. I think it's called I forgot what it's called now. The bitter truth, and they discuss it. And Muhammad hijab's clear position is, you can lie to her. You don't have to tell her what you're doing. She doesn't have the right to know. And it seems that's exactly what he's applied in his life. He took on.
So
he had
Frank,
a secret.
really, I tried to be really polite and respectful with you, and I tried to emphasize to you about not going after a specific individual, but talking about the actual matter at hand.
Okay, well, just take the matter then. What they discussed.
One second, Frank. Let's be, because it's really important that we do this, right? If you're going to have a discussion about Islam, talk about Islam. If you want to talk about a stream that happened somewhere else, or a podcast that happened somewhere else, and you heard something or you listened to something. I haven't listened to the Bitter Truth podcast by EFDawah. It's not my sort of thing to watch these panel shows, but you obviously have, and there's something that you didn't like, and you're raising that, and now what you're doing is you're conflating something, and you're making it about Islam. Now, what would be really useful, and I'm now giving you the last chance really to do this. Give me something specific from Islam that you disagree with about the marriage, and we can go take it from that point there.
Well, I guess there's several things. Number one, is it even right to take a second wife? But is it right to deceive your first wife regarding taking the second wife?
Okay, so that's your question, yeah?
Yeah.
So is it right to take your second wife? The answer to that is yes. Can you deceive your second wife?
The first wife. Deceive the first wife about you taking the second wife.
Yeah, so can you deceive your first wife? I'm not au fait with all of the rules, but my assumption would be that that's not something that you could do, based on the grounds that you're going to end up in. Because there's something very important in Islam. Do you know how the marriage works?
Sorry?
Do you know how the marriage works? How the marriage is done? What process is involved?
Well, I know the process of marriage.
So tell me about it. Tell me how the marriage is conducted in Islam. Tell me about it.
Well, apparently, well, I don't know the rules, but apparently in this one, he told this.
No, I'm asking you. No, hang on a sec. Wait a second. No, he, she, it, them. Islam says, or Islam doesn't say, because we're talking about Islam, right?
This is all about he and she.
Is it? Which he and she are you talking about?
Well, for a marriage to happen, you need a man and a woman.
Great. So we agree on one thing. So now tell me what happens then. What's the process?
He asked her to marry him. She had to get her father's approval. Well, in fact, he was supposed to ask her father for approval. Somehow that approval was got without actually ever discussing face to face in person, and went ahead. But then, in spite of being married, the woman was just stayed in a hotel. So it was at his convenience.
You're talking about, again, you've done all right. That's fine, Frank. I'm gonna have to let you go because again, you've done the same thing again. You brought nothing from Islam. Frank, have not brought anything from Islam.
Okay.
What you're doing is you're just doing the throwing the mud thing.
And Islam, well, no. I've referred you to
Frank,
Ali Dawah's stream.
Listen to me. I'm gonna put you on mute because really, even for you, down under, this is low down. You can't get further down under the low down than being in down under at the moment, compared to me. But this is even lower down. That you're scraping the bottom of the barrel. I've asked you to bring something from Islam about how the marriage works, and you haven't. And what you're showing is insincerity. You're not interested in actually having a discussion about Islam. You're not interested in it because you're not asking me about Islam. You're asking me about something you've heard on the internet. And you're asking me about something about a particular individual, as if any individual, me, Abbas, anyone else, is what Islam is. It's not. No more than Rabbi Zachariah or all of those Catholic priests represent your religion. Shall I line them all up and say that is it okay for the Pope or whoever these people might be in power to know that their priests are sodomizing young children and to then hide it from the public? Is that okay? Is that very Christian of them? This is the sort of really low down, horrible tactic that you're applying. But you know what? I don't expect anything more from you anymore, Frank. Really, I don't. So let me help you with your misunderstandings of the Islamic process so you understand. This is why I asked you, do you know the process? So what happens in Islam is quite simple. We don't have this get a good body count, try before you buy type of thing that is very prominent in much of the Christian West at the moment. We don't have this concept. What you do is if you see someone or you consider someone to be someone that you may want to marry because you find them attractive or whatever that is, what you do is you go straight to the father or the brother and you ask for their hand in marriage. Whoever is the person is the main head of that family. As it was in the old days, where people would, even in these countries that are claimed to be Christian, even in these countries where the father would be approached by the potential husband, and he would ask for his daughter's hand in marriage. Very respectful, honourable thing. Then what happens is that a couple of things happen. So there is a chaperoned interactions between the potential spouses. So the guy and the girl, they will take a seat at a restaurant with people around, interact with a little bit of privacy, but in a public way, and then they would be able to sort of determine whether or not there was like a spark, or whether they got on, whether they met the criteria that they were looking for. Once that was fine, then what would happen is the marriage would be arranged. And then what you do is you carry out a ceremony in which there are witnesses to the consent from both parties of the marriage. And once that's taken place, then there is a second part of that. The second part is something called the walima, which is the meal that's conducted after that nikah has been taken place. Now that the reason for that meal is because it publicizes that these two people are joined in marriage. It makes their matter public. So there's no such thing as a secret marriage. You can't do secret hidden marriages. It doesn't count. It's a public thing by definition. So now when anything else you're going to bring, it's just going to be hearsay and drama and mudslinging. And I'm not interested in any of that, Frank. We don't do drama, we don't do soap operas, we don't do innuendo, we don't take things from one place to another and talk about, gossip. It's not our role here, Frank. So is that clear? Is there anything else you'd like to say?
Also, you know what it is, Dr. Imran? Frank, do you think it's acceptable to talk about people just because people have spread rumors about them on the internet and indict them for crimes and find them guilty before proven innocent? I mean, is that the way? I mean, is that the way you weigh things up?
Very Trumpian, isn't it?
Am I allowed to speak?
Yeah, well, of course you are, Frank. I've just asked you a question.
So, look, if what is done is acceptable in Islam, then there's nothing, from your point of view, there is nothing wrong. So I'm not slinging mud.
You don't know what's been done because it's at the moment just accusation, right?
Well, I'm saying what was said on EFDawah's channel, and you can look it up. I think it was episode 8. Episode 8.
Frank, you keep switching from talking about an individual, which we've asked you not to do, because it's effectively, look, I'm not going to defend Muhammad Hijab if he's done something wrong. I will say straight to him on his face that hijab, this is wrong. That's how Muslims are. The Quran tells us clearly, stand up for justice, even against yourselves, against your parents, against your family, against your kin, whether one is rich or poor. We're not here to cover anything up, but in Islam, Frank, we have a very, very strong teaching, and we're warned against spreading slander, spreading rumors. And every single person that spreads a rumor, and it comes out and it's proven to be false, then every person that heard you and every person that spread that slander, you will share in all of the sin that has now transpired. So we are very careful not to talk about individuals. This is what Islam teaches us. Now, I don't know what your Christian teachings are, Frank, when it comes to spreading rumors and lies, potential lies, and slander. I don't know what your Christian, maybe you can enlighten us. Maybe you're allowed to do these things. Maybe you're allowed to spread rumors, even if it's unsubstantiated. The other thing is, have you ever heard Muslim speakers talk about Jimmy Swaggart, who had a prostitute in a hotel room, and use that against the Christians to say, look, this is Christianity, and try to tie in to Christianity? We don't do stuff like that. We just don't do stuff like that. I don't understand why you Christians have to fall so low.
I can give you an answer to that, Abbas. So I'll tell you why. It's because there's nothing in Christianity that's defendable.
Exactly.
You can't defend the Trinity. It makes absolutely no sense. You can't defend the fall of man because God is now tyrannical. You can't condemn, you can't defend the original sin because that is literally an injustice and evil upon all of humanity and innocent people. You can't defend the crucifixion because the crucifixion is human sacrifice, which the Old Testament speaks vehemently against. And you can't defend the idea that people who weren't present at an event are somehow eyewitnesses for that event. And that's Christianity in a nutshell.
Now, I'm going to.
If you can't defend these things, then the only option that you have left is to then throw mud in loads of directions and hoping that something will stick and we won't talk about Christianity. So here is, Frank is come on, representative Christianity, and what did he talk about? Some rumors on the internet. Where we go.
Anyway, before you come back in, Frank, I want to just add very quickly, because we don't want to dodge your initial or not your initial question, but partly your hidden question in there. When a woman enters into a nikah, a marriage contract with a husband, with a man, in a Muslim man, there are certain conditions that are within the Sharia already within that contract. And one of those conditions is that it is halal for him to marry again. That is actually within the marriage contract. So she's already agreed to it when she marries him. Now, if, however, a woman says that I do not want to be in a monogamous relationship, and I want to have stipulated within the contract that before you take a second wife, you will notify me and give me the option of not being in a monogamous relationship, he has to abide by his agreement, his contract. But so that is the condition within Islam. Now, polygamy is something that has been widely practiced within all societies. It is only, and Christian societies and Jewish societies. Now, it is only in recent times, because Christianity, Frank, has modernized, has liberalized, has secularized, has materialized, has commoditized the religion of Christianity, that it has no bearing and reflection on what the teachings of Jesus or the early followers of Jesus actually did. Because, Frank, remember, they were all under the law. You guys are not even under the law, Frank. So it's a completely different Christianity. It's a sort of a facade of what Christianity was. It's not what Christianity actually was, Frank. Now, I'm going to let you come back in there very quickly before we get the next guest on. But please be warned. We're not here to spread rumors. If something is established, you can go and speak directly to Muhammad Hijab on one of his streams when he's on his streams, and you can ask him directly. We're not going to be doing that cheap, get your popcorn ready. Let's start discussing about people's lives, and let's start judging other. Who has the right to judge anyone anyway, Frank? Anyway, come in there, Frank, and before we get the next guest on.
Just a couple of things. You asked about Christians and slander. So Jesus set out what you do when a brother sins, that you go and speak to him yourself, and then you if he won't listen to you, then you take 2 others with you as witnesses, and if you still won't listen, then you take it to the church. So you don't spread rumors outright. So it's in the very same chapter, Matthew 19, where he talks about divorcing wives, and that God, that in the beginning, the Creator made them man and wife, and there's one man for one woman. They become one flesh. So it's in the same chapter.
So is it a sin to marry more than one woman, Frank?
Well, he said, like when Jesus was asked, he said, and why he was talking against divorce, he said, it was not so in the beginning. God made them to be, a man takes his wife and they become one flesh.
Is that the question I asked you?
Yeah, that excludes others.
What was the question I asked you?
Sorry, can you repeat the
question I asked you?
Can you repeat it?
Is it a sin to marry more than one woman?
I wouldn't say a sin, but it's against God's will.
So going against God's will is not a sin. Is that what you're saying?
It displeases him, yeah.
But it's not a sin.
Well, in the sense that it's not like it wasn't outright banned in the Old Testament, but it's still wrong.
So it's wrong, but it's not a sin. And
it's wrong for a Christian.
So it's wrong, but not a sin. Is that what you're saying?
I put it this way: it's so frowned upon. I'd say it's a sin.
Frowned upon is not a sin. Is it a sin or not a sin? That for us, it's in Islam. We have a clear-cut thing: sinful, not sinful. This may be there are things, of course, that fall within what would be makruh, i.e., undesirable or disliked, but not necessarily haram. But you don't have that distinction, do you, Frank?
Well, we do, but see,
can you show me where?
It's not forbidden in the Old Testament.
So is it a sin or not a sin?
Well, in that sense, I'd say it's not a sin.
Okay. So did Jesus allow did Jesus allow in the Old Testament that a man can marry more than one woman?
Well, Jesus said that was not God's intent.
Did Jesus allow because Jesus is God as far as you're concerned, so he's part of the Trinity, so he's also part of the author of the Old Testament, and he allowed Solomon to marry, was it 1,000 women? What was it? Something like that?
700 wives and 1,000 concubines.
Okay. So did Jesus? No, hold on. Did Jesus permit that? Did he allow that?
Look, I'm going to tell you what Jesus specifically said.
In the Old Testament or the New Testament, Frank?
Okay. I can only go on what he said, right? So I'm just going to tell you what he said.
In the New Testament, because obviously all those words, you believe in Trinity as a
when Jesus is speaking, I'm talking about Jesus, the man on earth, what he said. in the
Oh,
New
so
Testament.
not
in
what
the
he said
Gospel.
in the Old Testament as part of the triune God.
Well, God was displeased with Solomon. That's a whole other issue.
He was
But
displeased with Solomon.
yeah, so
Was it a
in the
sin
new
then?
in Matthew 19, it says some Pharisees came to Jesus to test him, and they said, "Is it permissible to divorce your wife for any and every reason?" And Jesus said, "No," and he gave this example, and they said to him, "Then why is it that Moses allowed you to give your wife a certificate of divorce?" And he said, "It's because of your hardness of heart that he allowed this, but it was not so from the beginning." So he specifically says the Creator's intent was it was one man for one wife. You become one flesh. So that precludes having other people come in and be part of your one
So
flesh.
Moses had 2 wives, right?
We don't know if they were at the same time.
Sorry.
Like you're
Sorry.
allowed to remarry
You're,
after a wife dies.
so are you saying Moses was not married to 2 women at the same time?
Well, what evidence is there that he was?
Because there's a conversation of Sarah being jealous of
That's Abraham, Abbas. I
No,
think.
it's Abraham.
sorry, I beg your pardon, Abraham I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So was Abraham married to 2 women at the same time?
Yes.
Was that sin as well?
Well, according to the Bible, he also married Keturah, which is 3. So
Yeah, that was a mistake. In fact, God, like when you have him taking that wife, that brought about Esau.
Frank,
And
how do
God,
you talk about prophets with such? I have no, to the life of me, the very best of creation, the most purified of human beings, the ones who are nurtured, the ones who are in Islam. Abraham is mentioned as the Khalilullah, the friend of Allah, close to Allah. Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, in reverence and respect, said, our father Ibrahim. He's the father of the religion. I mean, we have such beautiful stories in the Quran of respect and of reverence to the prophets, that these were pure and Allah created them pure, and these were the best of examples for us to lead, and we learn from them and we love them and we want to be resurrected by them. But you Christians describe the prophets as if they're just some Tom, Dick or Harry. They're doing things of their own accord. They do wrong. They
were humans. They made mistakes. Like, in fact,
mistakes. But
yeah.
Frank, the thing that you're,
Did
Frank, what you're saying though, and what you attribute to the prophets, like for example, Lot, yes, it's illegal. Even has always been illegal. It's always been immoral, and in Islam, you'd be executed if you did that type of activity.
what makes you think Lot was a prophet? He was a bad man.
All right. Anyway, Frank, we've I think answered your question.
No, you haven't.
We
Because
have
the original question, and I asked you to go to Ali Dawah's show.
I've answered the question to you. I said to you, when a woman enters into a marriage contract with a man, there are certain things that she should know what her obligations are and what his obligations are, and there are certain things contractually that she's obliged and he is obliged to keep. And one of those is that Islam has permitted him to marry up to 4 women. And so he can go and marry again. He can go and marry another woman. Now, according to the Sharia, pretty much all the schools agree that it's not desirable to go and have not secret marriage, but a marriage where he's not informed her or whatever. It can never be secret because there has to be witnesses to the marriage. Otherwise, the marriage can't happen. So it's not some, Jimmy Swaggart situation where you get the woman into the hotel room and, you say whatever you say, and then, you do some dodgy things, and then you pretend that you were both praying in the hotel room. It doesn't work like that in Islam. So there has to be witnesses. She has to have a wali. The wali has to give her away. It has to be accepted. Yeah, he cannot. He doesn't have to tell his wife at that stage if he doesn't want to. That's according to the Sharia. Now, the scholars would not advise to do things like this, and there's reasons for that. The main reason would be that just because something is halal doesn't mean you should do it. You should also look at your cultural sensibilities and circumstances of the time, and that if you do such a thing, how will it jeopardize potentially your first marriage? What may have been accepted culturally before 200, 500 years ago, where the woman found out, oh, he has married again, and she would have just thought, well, okay, it's culturally pretty much normal and accepted, so there wasn't a big fuss. Today it might be seen completely differently in the light of cultural sensibilities. So since you've married a woman from a particular culture, it might be in England, it might be in America, it might be in Europe, then as a man, you should also be familiar with how such things may be accepted or not by the woman herself. And she has every option. If he marries again, she has every option to say, look, I don't want to be in this marriage. Unlike Christianity, Frank, because even if he goes and commits adultery and she wants a divorce, only for adultery she can get the divorce, but she can't marry again, can she, Frank? If she marries again, she's in an adulterous relationship. Whereas this woman who divorces the husband because he married again and she doesn't want to be in that marriage, she can go on and she can marry again, Frank. Her life doesn't have to be destroyed. That's the difference. So I think what you're doing, you're comparing apples to oranges, quite frankly. Okay, chalk and cheese. I think also, Frank, coming from a Christian background, I think you need to be a bit more humble and understand your own teachings and understand your own limitations when it comes to divorce and marriage and these type of things. And look at Christian societies today, Frank. If you look at the society within the Western world, it has the highest rate of divorce, highest rate of affairs, highest rate of marriages breaking up and families breaking up. So I really don't think you have you're not on a pedestal giving lectures, quite frankly, to us, Frank, on this. Anyway, I'll let you have the last word, Frank, before you go.
Well, it's that question: can a man lie to his first wife about his second wife?
No. All right, Frank. Wonderful. Lovely to see you.
Great.
All the best.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.